but it is a sad day among the Ohio State faithful. I think people believed that this was going to be an opportunity to win a national championship, and that's still out there. But there was an idea of maybe going undefeated, and the idea of winning the Big Ten championship, I think, is important to these guys as well. Hat and T-shirt game Schlegs matter.
Yep.
And those guys wanted to have a chance to go out there and win a Big Ten championship, man. And to lose it in the manner you did, losing to Indiana in Indianapolis on Saturday night, 13-10. That 13-10 score, Schlegs, there's a little bit of an ominous feel to that, given that was the Michigan score the year before. The game kind of felt a little bit like that, where you were not dominating, but in control of the game, but never really separating. Couldn't really get that 2-score lead. And you get some stops, and then all of a sudden, boom, they get a touchdown, and now all of a sudden you're down. And despite kind of having controlled most of the game, and then you couldn't make a field goal to save your life. And so all of those things kind of played into it. It was frustrating. It was disappointing. I don't think it was devastating by any stretch. There's nothing that I saw in that game that when I watched it, I looked and said, hey, there's a serious issue here that's going to prevent Ohio State from potentially winning a national championship. Like, that thought didn't enter my head at all. I thought, man, we're playing good. We just need to find a way to kind of kick the door in. Ran the ball pretty well. Could have run it better. Didn't protect particularly well. Defensively, did a pretty good job. Had some stops, maybe could have got one more at the end. You always start looking for the edges, but you think you hold a team to 13 points, Schlegs. That should be enough, especially in 2025, to be able to win a game. And so all those things in concert, surprising. Now, there was a lot of things that were surrounding that game leading into it. There's not excuses, but there are reasons, but there was a lot of things. And I want to throw the Hartline piece to USF is just one part of that. I don't even know if it's the main part. But the team looked pretty ready to go, but Indiana looked faster. And I think that's a function of Schlegs. They played Purdue the week before and beat them by 50 points, as opposed to having to play Michigan in an emotional, heartfelt contest. So there's a lot of stuff that went into it.
And they had a bye week before that.
They had a bye before that. Ohio State fans showed up in Indianapolis. There was more Indiana fans there than I'd ever seen in one place at one time, but I thought it was probably a 50-50 split. What did the crowd look like when you were hearing it, Schlegs, on the field, like in the game on television? What did that sound like? Did it sound like a fairly even crowd? It's hard when you're all wearing red.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it sounded like Indiana had, like when we were on offense, it sounded, and people in the chat can chime in, but I mean, it sounded like there was a large contingent of Indiana fans and maybe being a little bit louder. But I go back to this, Bob, and I'm going to stick with Ryan's script on this, that he's going to take it like a man and they're going to get better. And that's what this is. And it goes back to even the conversation of championship games, but it's a bigger point than that. It's every game does matter. As much as we get into college football expansion, all these different things, when you're playing good on good, like good on good matchups as a player, just so everybody knows, always matters, especially one from a Big Ten title. So you have a team that has never, beaten Michigan. They beat Michigan, but they haven't won a Big Ten championship since 2019. And then now they're able to do that. I remember going back to that, Bob, when I first came to Ohio State in 2012, we couldn't compete for a Big Ten championship. Couldn't go to the national championship. Didn't win it that year. Lost, I believe, to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship in 13, and then we eventually won it in 14. So there's lots of factors. You did a great job on Big Play Cleveland, Bob, articulating all of the different things surrounding this. And I want you to articulate that to everybody. And then I just got a little side nugget.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you articulate, because it does matter, right? And I love your point of same score of Michigan last year, 13-10. We're going to get in the game breakdown, guys, because there were opportunities in that, just like there were in that Michigan game, when you could have like pulled away, changed a little bit about from what Indiana was wanting to do, right? By just executing certain things. And that's what Ryan's going to tell you. It's like you always regret it if it doesn't work. But you go back and you look at the little things. I even heard Cade McDonald talking about just the execution aspect. But talk about the week that transpired between the Michigan win and this game, Bob, that you articulated so well.
Well, thank you, Sykes. And so we'll do that. I'll do that. Before I do it, though, I want to kind of open up, for the show. We're going to break down the offense. We'll break down the defense. We'll talk about the prospects moving forward, who they can play, get into a little bit of the rankings, but save the national stuff tomorrow with Bill. But there's explanations and then there's excuses. Yep. And Ryan's not making excuses for any of this. Like, you didn't hear him come in there and talk about all the things that were going on, the positive, the negative, everything else that was with it. But obviously, you're coming off a game against Michigan, a very, very emotional game that you wanted to win. All of it, obviously, all the hoopla and everything that went after the game, that was all part of it. And you knew that was going to be part of it going in. So you win that game, you exhale, you're playing Indiana. National Signing Day is on Wednesday. And right before National Signing Day, you get the announcement that Brian Hartline, your head coach, is going, or your offensive coordinator is going to be going to UCF. And I'm sure Ryan had talked with him and everything, but that breaks right before. So people talked about that being a distraction. What? That's part of it. There's some stuff there, but like, Brian didn't go down to Florida before any of this. He's in Florida now after the game because they're really not doing anything at this moment. But that happens, Tuesday, it starts to break on Tuesday, and then Wednesday's National Signing Day. So for 90% of college football, it's fine. Your season's done. You're signing your recruits. You're handling all that. Well, for Indiana and Ohio State and Georgia and North Texas and Duke, like all the small percentage of teams, probably about 10%, maybe a little less, 8% of the teams that are playing in their conference championship games, they have to also do that while preparing for a game. Some of those teams, like, that's huge. Winning their conference is a big deal. That was going to stamp them a ticket. For Ohio State, it's give you the number one seed. And so while you have that, you're trying to get your class together. Now, with that, since you lost Brian Hartline, there's a little bit of craziness that's going on. You have the number one receiver in the country, not one of the best players in all of the land, and Chris Henry Jr., who now isn't signing. What's going on? You're trying to figure all that out. You're dealing with his agent. Ryan, you're at practice. You're trying to get him. And I'm listening to people talk to me, Schlegs. And it came out Friday. He announced it Friday at 12:10 on McAfee. So we had already done our show. And the amount of people that were all concerned about Chris Henry, and I think I said on our show, Schlegs, let's not worry about championships 3, 4, and 5 that Chris Henry is going to bring us. Let's worry about getting championship number 2 with Ryan. Okay? Like, let's just lean in on that. I know we like to get real greedy and everybody just get all the best players and get all this. It's all good, but let's just focus on this. And if you don't get Chris Henry, it's not the end of the world. We ends up committing, but the whole saga of that takes a toll on you. Like, those are minutes. Time is perishable. And everyone's like, oh, you got a week to prepare for a game. It's not that much. And you hadn't played Indiana this year. They were really good. They did different stuff than they did last year. You're trying to watch film and hone in on them. And so you're trying to do that while you're trying to recruit Chris Henry, get that situated. It didn't happen on Wednesday. It didn't happen on Thursday. It bled all the way to Friday at noon. And it wasn't like Ryan knew Thursday night. It's like, oh, you just make your announcement. No, they're finding out in real time. They're texting and FaceTiming like right after the show, and you saw the clips of it. Everybody's all excited. And I'll be honest, for me, Schleich, I was even feeling good. Like, all right, we got Chris Henry, as if he was going to go play in the game now. Like, suit him up. Get him out there.
Right. Let's go.
So you felt good. You had that positivity, but that was just one more thing that you had to deal with. And then also the player Legend Bay that hasn't really been talked about as much because of Chris Henry, who's a Texas kid who's committed to Tennessee, decommitted, was going to go to Ohio State, has all of his Ohio State gear and garb out, and he's not 18 yet. His mom wouldn't sign off on it. His brother hacked into his social media. He wants to be a Buckeye. Tennessee says they're not letting him out. His mom, maybe or maybe not, it's been rumored that maybe even forged his letter of intent, Schlegs, and that's not actually his signature. And so they're trying to navigate that. And so there's all those things. And then it's like, poof, go to Indy. not play a game. And it wasn't like you went there and laid an egg and didn't show up. You lost 13-10. Like, you were winning in that game 10 to, I think it was 10-3. Then they kicked the field goal to make it 10-6. Yeah. So you're up 10. You just couldn't get a stop and couldn't get that second score and get up and start really putting the hammer to people. And the defense played really well. We had the stops. It kind of, Schlegs, reminded me of our Penn State game defensively. Like, could you have played better? Probably. Yes. Always say you could play better. But
bro, it was, I felt, Bob, I'm dead serious. I'm sitting there on the couch with Steph and Sam, and I'm like, this reminds me of 2005 Penn State. Now, granted, we only let up 170 yards in that game, but you're playing your face off and you're still down. You know, it's hard. But they did, though. They kept rising to the occasion, Bob.
Oh, yeah. And they kept getting stops. And then we can get into the holding and everything else. But that's kind of the situation surrounding the week, that there was so much going on. And Indiana had some of that going on. They didn't have quite the recruiting drama and the coach leaving. But it's not an excuse. And Ryan's not saying this is why we lost. But it didn't feel like when people saw around the field, the players looked focused and everything. It wasn't like they were mailing it in. And they wanted to win that game, believe me, Schlegs. Those guys were playing hard and playing to win. They wanted to win the Big Ten championship. So we can talk about the relevance and the importance. And do college football conferences, do you need to have these conference championship games? Are they still necessary? Are they still relevant and important? Moving forward, I don't know. We'll talk about that, with everything's going. But when you're playing in it, when you're coaching in it, that's all that matters.
Yep.
But that is part of the story, that when you're Ryan Day and you're at practice and you're talking with Mark Pantoni, like, you got texts are coming in regarding other stuff. Like, there's just a lot of things that were going on right there.
Well, I'm Bob. I'm 100% with you. And again, what does that do? That takes mental space, right? It takes time, and it's just your time as a coach. And